What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. Today, I want to know, have you ever found yourself in the following situation? Alrighty, birdie look. Let's ride. Well, that's embarrassing. That's fine. Go ahead and drain the par. Wow. Birdie to bogey. Birdie to double bogey. Well, that's a bummer. Well then, boy howdy, do we have a tip for you. But before we dive in, we gotta ask the most important question of the day. How you doing today, Dylan? You having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
All right, so shoot me straight. Does the opening skit hit a little too close to home for some of you? I think that while we're out there on the course, we can lose so many strokes to the putting green without actually realizing why we're sacrificing those strokes, where those sacrificed strokes are going. We kind of get to the end of the round and we're just wondering, man, I feel like I didn't play that awful, but I seem to take like a really terrible score. Well, I've got a thought experiment that I want to try out, and I just want to see if the aggressive route, or if this idea of we have to take every at bat that comes to us, is actually the right way to go about it. And I'm going to be 100% honest, this idea kind of inspired from baseball. So for those of you who are not necessarily baseball fans or follow a lot of sports outside of disc golf, what I find fascinating is that inside of the MLB, if you are batting as a like 350 or better player, which means you're batting 350 out of 1,000. So every 3.5 attempts you have at the plate, you are successful. Then that is considered a very, very good batting average amongst the rest of the league. Now, of course, that's talking about baseball, not golf. But I do think that hitting a baseball at the top level is one of the most difficult athletic feats to do in the world. And the game balances itself by adding in this thing called a walk. I'm not trying to treat you guys like you're fools, but essentially every at bat has a potential of 7 throws sort of counting for the at bat. I guess realistically it's going to be 6. Yeah, 6 maximum that count towards your at bat. You can either get 4 balls, which is where the strike zone is from your knees to your chest, and that zone exists and it goes across the plate, and they have to throw a ball within that strike zone over the plate, and anything outside of that is a ball. If I swing at the ball and miss, that's a strike, and if it goes through that strike zone and I don't swing, it's a strike. Foul tips and everything, I'm not here to talk about the nuance of that. So I'm sitting there watching my Braves lose because that seems to be the vibes of how our season is going to go last night. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that, man, there are times when getting a walk is the right play because it sets up future scoring opportunity inside of the baseball game. Perfect. This should demonstrate our point, but just in case. Ah, even better. So, to finish closing out this analogy, because I know some of you are like, I'm not a baseball guy, let's talk disc golf. When you get walked inside of baseball, it actually does not count as an at-bat for you. Like, let's say that you actually went to the plate 4 times, but you got walked one of them. At the end of the evening, you would only be looking at your strikeouts versus hits on 3 of those at-bats. So as I said, what's most fascinating about this concept to me is that we don't count the at-bat, but it does create a future scoring opportunity, because if you walk, you then have a runner on the base for which you can utilize that opportunity created there in order to get another run later on. If you've watched any amount of content here on the channel, you can sort of see where we might be going with this. So here's the thing about putting, and I talked about this in a video recently about 5 reasons why you miss a lot of putts. And I think that it is that we walk into certain distances and ranges and we tell ourselves, I should be making these putts consistently. For instance, I'm sitting here in this opportunity and I'm looking, thinking, okay, this is a 200-something foot hole and I have a birdie look right here. I should try my best to try and make this birdie putt, because what's the worst that can happen? If I run the putt, I'm gonna have an opportunity to score. So what am I gonna do as a player? I'm gonna step up. I'm gonna try to make the putt. Unfortunately, I was short and I missed. Didn't account for the wind. Coming off, I threw it nose down and it dropped the putt as I played into the headwind. Opportunity missed. But as I think about that, if I were a recreational player, or if I was someone not in tune with my own putting awareness, I'm stepping up to a putt like that. And even honestly, watching several NBO players at local events, they're like slapping themselves and yelling like, oh, I can't believe I made that putt. And we want to take advantage of opportunities when we get them. But let's think about how far this putt actually was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so I'm about 24 feet, which is just outside of my comfort circle. And now, am I allowed to make putts outside my comfort circle? Absolutely. I can and should. If I keep putting them nose down like that, I'm never gonna have the opportunity to make them. But I can make corrections along the way and start dialing in those putts. And there are lots of MA3 players and MA2 players even that are gonna look at this, and definitely some MA4 players who are looking at this opportunity thinking, hey, I've gotta make these putts, gotta make these putts. But because we don't necessarily have control over our power, they're gonna have an opportunity like this and put so much pressure on trying to make it that they put themselves in some bad scenarios and try to give it some pop and end up sailing maybe too far past the basket. Now, while this lie on this basket seems, hey, you've got a hill behind it, you can run it pretty safely, because even though I missed and tried to miss long, I'm a little outside frame, but the putter landed pretty close to the basket. But what if on the same hole there was a different approach that I think more people would have an obvious thought but make the same error? What's fascinating is that here with my Buds SS, I'm actually the same amount of distance away from the basket as I was before. But you can see that the conditions of which I'm putting into are vastly different. Air ball here leads me over a cliff and opens up the possibility of 3-putting. Now, recently, a professional on the Disc Golf Pro Tour has come out in an interview and said that she is doing a slam turbo putt because she is finding that inside of 12 feet and in, which is the bullseye, she is having the yips right now and some inconsistencies. And she is okay with the style of putt she's chosen because she knows even if she misses them, she's not gonna 3-putt. Now, I wanna acknowledge that the mental yips are one thing, but I also wanna acknowledge that I firmly believe that anyone, especially if you have the backing of a major organization, that you have cheaper access to plastic than most anyone, could spend even 30 minutes a day just with a stack of putters in their hand and practice over and over again this range to make sure that this became second nature for you to drain putt after putt. And the amount of reps that you could get in that time, especially because you have the backing of a major manufacturer, I do think that if this was a problem range for you, you probably could figure that range out and get the reps in to overcome it. There you go. I missed one. And it took 10 attempts. I missed one at 10. Now that's tough, personally. But I'd also hope that if I was a professional and this was my job, was to make these, well then yeah, I would hope that I could spend a little bit of time and not be talking to the camera and trying to teach the camera and really dial in this putt over and over again. You can see this consistency by just practicing from this range. At the end of the day, nobody wants to 3-putt. I think that's the moral of the story. So how do we avoid 3-putting, especially in this situation? Well, if I'm walking up to distances like this, that I expect myself to make the putt because I don't actually have a good internal gauge of what I can and can't do. If I expect myself to be making putts that look like this over and over again, what that's gonna mean is that if I slightly misfire in this situation, I'm now all the way down the hill. I gave it the right height, I gave it the right pace, I was just a hair left. Bummer. That small error has now cost me arguably not one stroke, but yeah, that's at the bottom of the hill. As someone who's very good at putting, I don't feel good about making that comebacker. But once again, If I'm coaching someone and working with a student at this range, they might tell me, Mr. YouTube man, I'm supposed to make those putts. That's where I have to get my strokes. And I'm saying, thought experiment, what if we just decided to take the walk instead of striking out? You've heard me say it once and you'll hear me say it again. If you want to shoot 900 rated golf, which is good enough to beat most people that play disc golf casually, the physical skill set that you need to have, you need to be able to throw 250 feet with accuracy, and you need to be able to make all of your putts 20 feet and in. So the thought experiment is, what if we tried playing disc golf? If you knew that you leak strokes on the putting green, what if not out of a sign of defeat, but a sign of risk assessment and understanding that, hey, I am completely content just accepting that I'm not even gonna look at a putt outside of 20 feet. I'm going to turn my putter over and slide it up and put it under the basket to not only guarantee that I never 3-putt, but to make every single time I'm on a putting green less stressful. I'm standing here with a safe run behind the basket. Doesn't matter, take the walk. Now, even there, hey, slid it up under the basket and it slid long. That's fine, because we're still inside this tap-in range that hopefully I can make. Now, what happens when we're inside of 20 feet? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll go right here. Bang. Suddenly, I have these opportunities and I'm itching for these opportunities to have a chance to putt, to have a chance to look at the basket and try to make those putts. And I can continue to practice my putts 20 feet and in. I'm dialing in this area 20 feet and in, because I'd be willing to bet that most people have some semblance of how to make a putt inside of 15 feet. You have some knowledge of how to throw a putter to make it inside of 15 feet. Because 15 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 15 feet is right here. Now as a 6'3" guy, yeah, it becomes a little easier because I can lean over my lie and I know that I'm not actually there, but I feel like I'm like halfway to the basket just by reaching over and extending here. But if I'm throwing a putt with the power and the height to get it midway into the chains from 15 feet, I can throw with the same amount of power and just aim 1 or 2 chain links higher and watch as from right here, this had the power to go all the way out there. I can even get it to you with the same amount of power, and I've sailed it past the camera. I just aimed a little higher. I think that we overcomplicate things inside of the circle and we end up in these, as one of my Patreon members said, dead zones. For instance, his dead zone, I think he said his dead zone was like 20 to like 30 feet. He felt very comfortable with something 20 feet and in, and then he also felt something really comfortable outside the circle. But that middle range, he was in his head about. Take the walk. Don't let the at-bat count, because by choosing to lay it up in this moment, does it create a scoring opportunity for you later on? Or even if it doesn't necessarily, we'll say, create a scoring opportunity later on, you're at least not usually moving backwards to a place where, hey, you now have to make upstrokes because you 3-putted. If we just think about that, if I laid up every single putt outside of 20 feet, so I throw my drive and my drive has me to a place where I'm within 45 feet of the basket and everything, 45 feet and out, I just turn this putter upside down. Now that's tough because that didn't get all the way there. So you can practice this. You can practice this shot. I'm not saying that it's like something that you should just naturally be able to do, but I bet that you can naturally do this sliding motion a whole lot easier than it is for some people to learn how to putt right off the bat, especially from this distance. I just give it a little more pop. Boom, we're underneath the basket. If I can land within 45-ish feet of all of the holes out there, let's just do that thought experiment for some of you at your local courses. If you could land outside of 45 feet of every basket, and you could guarantee that because you took a walk on all of them and just turned the putter upside down, slid it under the basket, and knew that when your putter or your upside down approach disc comes out, that at most from that point, you are only gonna throw 2 shots. I would love to know in the comments down below, your drive puts you within 45 feet of the basket and you're able to guarantee that 2-stroke thing. How many of you would shoot a personal best at your local course. Now, there are times where you're gonna step up to a hole and it's just not gonna feel possible. You're just not necessarily gonna be able to put it within 45 feet. For instance, this hole, as you saw in our birdie bash a couple weeks ago, I like to throw the forehand out and around. But instead, I'll throw the backhand turnover because I'm worse at the backhand turnover on this line. Okay, it's up there. That might actually be inside of 45 feet. So let's go with a funsy flip and we'll try to do something. There we go. Tried to throw the turnover and I yeeted it straight into a tree on the right. Well, this is really gonna mess up my 45-foot plan. And I can even see it in the comments because people are responding with, well, that's just gonna put more pressure on the opportunities that you have to make a putt. And I could see that. I could definitely see where you feel that way. I could see how you get to that thought process. But the idea here is that we are trying to simplify the game to execute the shots that we feel most comfortable executing. So for you, maybe it isn't 20 feet, but maybe you're watching this and you are an 840 or 820 or 830 rated player. Well, your averages aren't asking you to shoot 900 rated golf. Your averages are asking you to make 870 rated golf, because that would still be like a 50 to 75% improvement from what you're already doing. And if you want to shoot 870 rated golf, well, you can miss a couple 20-footers. So when standing here, the problem that's presenting itself is that I've messed up a shot. I have essentially, to keep the baseball analogy going, struck out on my tee shot. Now, because of this, one train of thought for this would be that I've got to hit a home run. I've got to make it up. And so what I've got to try to do is I have to try to find a way to get some shot going from down here. And I'm going to try to just zip this thing through the trees and park it by the basket. But unfortunately, I'm in bad footing and therefore I wasn't able to make it. So instead of trying to execute the hero shot or trying to execute something that maybe is statistically a little more difficult, I instead turn around and embrace and say, all right, let's go back to executing shots that I know I can do. So rather than playing to the basket per se, I just accept that I've had an error, I've messed up, and therefore I'm gonna be taking a bogey on this hole. So what do? I just try to throw a straight shot and put myself in range, both by throwing a range and giving myself the opportunity to, from there, turn a disc over, slide it up under the basket, and get back to executing my game plan. On this week's episode of In the Bag, someone asked us what are some tournament tips, and I really think that Brad probably had the best answer here, and that it was, don't let one bad hole determine the story of the rest of your round. Just because you took a bad score on a singular hole doesn't mean that you have to reroute the entire plan because of one hole that makes up for less than 8% of your round. Golf is a game of execution, and it becomes a lot easier to execute our plan when we walk in with a plan that better fits the skills that we're bringing to the table. For instance, I did a bag swap with a few friends this weekend, so I was throwing unfamiliar discs to me. Two of the friends were married, so they were familiar with each other's bags, and the other one, I had not really paid much attention to his game, so I had no idea sort of what his bag included. Did I have the best physical skill set out of everyone there in terms of execution and my ability to throw a disc? Sure. But unbeknownst to them, I made sure that my game plan walking in was, we're just gonna take as many pars as we possibly can, and if birdie opportunities present themselves, then we'll try to make the birdie. And what did I end up shooting on the day overall? Even though I got several birdies, it was even par, because I just put myself in the position to make putts that I knew I could make, and putts that, even knowing I'm going for them to make them, weren't gonna make me 3-putt. Now, I know that this seems completely radical, and there are lots of people who probably have clicked off of this video by now because they've just written this off as like a silly idea that they don't actually think would help them. In the same way that so many people, when I say you should play for par and you should lean into playing for par and the birdies will come, they're like, no, that's so lame, Robbie. I've got to be aggressive. I got to do this and this and this. And then they finally, you know, just happen to like do the thing. And then they're like, wow, I just shot my best round ever. So I get it. Different always sounds crazy. But how I want to preface this and kind of close out the video is I want to give you a caveat that comes before all of this, a story of seeing this actually executed and watching two people who weren't even below 900 rated. They in fact were both rated above 900 and tried this strategy and shot some of their best rounds they've done. And then third, one more caveat to kind of close things out. So let's talk. First, caveat number one, the better you are at throwing the disc, the more effective this strategy is. And that sounds like so, well, just duh, Mr. YouTube man. But hear me out. What I'm saying is this technique applies even more so to those of you who are very good at throwing a disc off a tee. And when you look back on your round, you realize that, hey, I lost so many strokes to the putting green. And for some of you, the pressure of making a putt actually makes even your upshots significantly harder. Whereas in this method, we kind of are just, once again, taking a walk on putts and we're laying them up under the basket, which should, in theory, alleviate the pressure because I'm just turning that putter upside down and tossing it. If you've never tried this before, next time you go to a course, next time that you're in your backyard, if you have a yard, just take a stack of putters, turn them upside down, and just try to slide them. And you're almost like playing bocce ball with your putters. Oh, you finished up a hole and you're walking back to the next tee box where you left your bag? All right, cool. Take your putter, slide it down and see if you can slide across the grass to your bag and see if you can hit your bag. I'd be willing to bet that some of you are super good at that. Second, story time. We have a guy who is like 920 something rated, 930 something rated, which means that that player should be playing an NA2, but they often play NA1, or when they're feeling it, they'll play MPO in their local scene. And they're playing a head-to-head match against someone who is very good at throwing a disc, but not a great putter by any stretch of the imagination. Like shaking in his boots at 15 to 20 feet. Has even been documented, saying that all he wanted to do during a round was make some putts. I witnessed these two titans go head to head, and they're playing each other, and one of them walks in with the mindset of, I think that I'm going to lose so many strokes on the putting green. What I'm gonna do is any singular putt outside of 10 feet, I'm going to turn the disc over and I'm gonna lay it up under the basket. I'm not even asking you to do that outside of 10 feet. I'm saying outside of 20 feet. I want you to have the opportunity to go for putts. But no. This guy said he was gonna turn everything over 10 feet and out. So awesome, throws a drive, lands at 20 feet, has the opportunity to make a birdie. Said nope, turns it over, lays it up under the bucket. Let me tell you that they did not even make it through the entire round because by hole 12, player B, the layup person, had established a 7-stroke lead over the other player who was trying to just play normal golf. Because if putting is your greatest weakness, oftentimes you can just take a walk and eliminate it as a thing from the game and watch as your success scores. And then as you start to realize, hey, I'm like saving so many strokes by not taking even mediocre looks at the basket. All right, cool. Let me go ahead and take a stab at this one because now I'm at 20 feet and I want to take a shot at taking the birdie. And you start working that in to the rounds. You're at 25 feet, you want to take a shot. And so you learn to sort of have this layup or approach material that suddenly, even those putts, you aren't 3-putting anymore. And we're getting better at disc golf. One walk at a time. But that brings me to the last caveat. And that is, y'all, we're playing a game. Like, this is supposed to be fun. It's a sport, but it's a game. There are lots of folks out there whose fun of the game is directly tied to their success and their ability to score, and I get that. And I do think that if you aren't, I'll go ahead and say 900 rated, I really would be curious if you just turn your putter upside down and lay up everything outside of 20 feet. Come back and tell me how it goes for you. Maybe it goes terribly, and maybe this is terrible advice. But like I said, I've seen it work for someone who was better than 900 rated, and they absolutely crushed it. It took so much pressure off of them that they were able to play even more freely and start getting some closer shots simply because there was no weight of I have to make this putt at the end of the hole. I'm just laying it up next to the basket. But if this sounds super lame and super off to you, trash it. Don't even do it. Don't even think about laying it up. But I'm here to coach. I'm here to try to help you improve. And I don't know, guys. I think if you have zones inside the circle that you are not confident in, turn it upside down, lay it up, and just watch what does that do to your game? I would be willing to bet that most of you don't know. Why? Because you've never tried it. And let's not make this the broccoli of disc golf. Eat your greens, people. Because if you eat your greens by laying up, you'll start succeeding on the greens inside of disc golf. Can't believe we got there. So let me know in the comments down below, how like ridiculous is this idea? Am I crazy for thinking this? I knew that I wanted to try something with putting today that we haven't talked about before. And it really is this like theory that I've been developing in my head over and over again. And especially like going and walking and seeing MA3 cards and MA4 cards and just amateur cards in general. I just feel like the amount of times that if they would lay up, instead of trying to even run that putt and understanding the, like, no one's accounting for the mental wear of a 3-putt on you, I really would be curious. So, like I said, let me know in the comments how crazy this is, or if you're willing to try it, leave your comment down below how I'm willing to try this. Here's my PR on this course, and I went and tried it, and then come back and comment down below again, and I'll be looking forward to this comment section. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdie.